to learn to commit. Journey ahead will never be smooth and sweet, but as an ambitious nation, we have to be upbeat. I know we have done it before, so we can do it again. All the pain we've endured, the pride we have to maintain in order to create a better world. Every living soul has to play their role. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We got to stamp out the devil, stamp out all evil, jealousy, not by me, certainly. We got to stamp out greediness, stamp out wickedness, jealousy, not by me, certainly. Tomorrow is the first day, the rest of our life. Let's make tomorrow the first day of the rest of our life. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make our country strong. Whoa. Change. Whoa. I remember the love and unity that we once shared. Starting from the home, the children would be prepared. There was a daily part of our living. This society would be part of our children upbringing. We used to eat everything we grow and grow everything we eat. But smiling faces would glow and the people were real discreet. We need to go back to where we were. Otherwise we'll witness things we never seen before. Opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We have an opportunity to change things around, an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to make Dominica strong. We got to stamp out the ugly, stamp out cruelty, jealousy, not by we, certainly. We got to fight hypocrisy, all conspiracy, jealousy, not by we, certainly. Tomorrow is the first day, the rest of our life. Let's make tomorrow the first day of the rest of our life.
All right, that is where I want to say a special greetings and welcome to all of you locked into that space at this time. It is just about 6 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of our region in which we live. Those of you who are out of that region on a different time zone, thank you very much for tuning in as well. Your presence is always welcome here. This evening, folks, on the Civic Vibes program, we have a very interesting program, a very informative program at that, I must say. Awaiting you guys this evening, today being the 17th day of November 2024. And that is where we're just about to make that all-important start in just a bit. For those of you who are celebrating something at this time, be it a birthday, an anniversary, a newborn, or just celebrating life on a whole, a pleasant good evening to you. We at Civic Vibes, we celebrate with you as well. Those of you who are shut in, those of you who are sick, whatever a sickness that may be troubling you at this time, those of you who may have laid your loved ones to rest, we empathize and sympathize with you in a very special way as well. So yes, folks, we are here 7 minutes past 6 o'clock. A very interesting program awaits you. As I said, we have two lawyers in the house, one from Dominica, the other from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so you'll be hearing from them in just a bit. About a topic / conversation that has been plaguing us for some time in Dominica, and yes, by extension, the region, when persons are under suspicion of whatever crime or even under arrest. And we're talking about the rights of these citizens indeed. And so none other than our local attorney here, Mr. Joshua Francis, always standing up for the rights of the less fortunate in Dominica. He is here, and so we'll be hearing from him in just a bit. And his counterpart from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, attorney at law as well, and senator in the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is none other than Mr. Israel Bruce. So folks, without saying much more, let me move across to hear from Brother Alvin Thomas, who is the co-host of this program. Alvin, good evening to you, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Yes, good afternoon, Lofty. Good afternoon, and a pleasant good afternoon to all of folks who have already logged in to the live. Want to say a pleasant good afternoon to every one of you. And in a special way, of course, to welcome both Brother Bruce from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as Brother Josh from Dominica. I think both of them have been on the program before, so they're no strangers to Civic Vibes. But indeed, it's a pleasure to have them this afternoon. I think the topic we are about to engage in and have a conversation in, I always try to let and remind our viewers that this program, Civic Vibes, we don't only come here to give information, we come to have a conversation. And in so doing, to have our citizens in Dominica and throughout the region engage to take action. Because at the end of the day, we can do a lot of the talking, but if some action is not taken to change the course of things, then we don't really meet the objective. So I'm hoping that we can have a very lively and engaging conversation. As you rightly state, Lofty, the situation at the moment as it pertains in Dominica and the rest of the region is quite troubling, very troubling, because what we see now is a heavy hand of the government or the authorities to do as they wish with the citizens. And sometimes the citizens themselves feel, boy, we have no rights. Our rights are just thrown aside. And I may be wrong, Josh will and Israel will speak to that in more detail, but I'm beginning to think that Dominica is now a police state. And by definition of what a police state is, I think it meets all of those definitions. So we'll have that kind of conversation. And again, welcome to both Josh and Israel. And it's good to have you guys. So I'll sit back and listen, do a lot of listening myself, because in every other programs, I always learn something new. So again, thank you, Lofty.
Yes, indeed. All right, Alvin Thomas, thank you very much for your opening remarks here. Welcome opening remarks indeed. All of you know who are tuning in at this time, thank you very, very much indeed. Please share that live feed. Make someone know that the Civic Vibes program is on, and each and every Sunday, as Alvin alluded to earlier, there is something to be learned here. Without saying much more, let me move across now to hear from the people who we come to hear from this afternoon. And we're going to turn to our brother Joshua Francis, first of the bat. Josh, good evening to you in a very special way, and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Loftus.
Good evening.
Good evening to Alvin and Bruce and all the followers, those who are logged in on this platform this evening. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Lofty and Alvin, for inviting me to be part of this discussion.
All right, Josh, let me just say straight up, when I circulated the promo that subject matter will be discussed, and Joshua Francis will be on as one of the lawyers who will basically give much more detail about the topic on the scrutiny this evening. A lot of folks says, Lofty, we're going to tune in, because Josh is always someone that, you know, I always learn something. I always appreciate hearing this brother in terms of his expression, especially as it pertains to breaking down of the certain aspects of the law. So Josh, you have persons listening. They may not be there. You may not be seeing them there, but they are listening, some of them, and watching in the, what I call the incognito mode. They are just there, taking in the information.
Thank you, Lofty.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Josh.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Bruce, your turn now. Our brother from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as Alvin said, you were here with us already. No stranger to Civic Vibes. Welcome again, brother, and thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Loftus and Alvin. I'm grateful for the opportunity again to share in this educational and exchange exercise between my brothers and sisters from within the Eastern Caribbean. I am delighted to have Josh, who I've not met before, And hopefully this would be a beginning of something greater for the Eastern Caribbean states and for practitioners in the region. But most importantly, every opportunity to engage and to answer questions, to share your knowledge with those brothers and sisters from the region is always an opportunity that I embrace. And as best as I can, I hope that sometime soon, I'd be able to have people signing in because they know I'm coming on, just like Josh. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Brother Bruce, for your opening remarks as well. Your time is very much appreciated here. Folks, in terms of the topic that we're going to look at this afternoon, these two lawyers going to help us understand much more, is that, for example, when a citizen or citizens are under suspicion by the police and or even they get arrested, do they have rights? Do those rights matter? In Dominica and by the region by extension, we have been seeing that, sort of a trend of late in Dominica with the latest situation we had in our hand with this brother from West Ladies. Yes, we heard a lot of talk around those lines as well. So Josh, let me just give you that, as we say in cricketing terms, that cherry, that red ball, so that you can, strike it off the bat, as it were, with your going deeper into the topic this evening. Again, Josh, where and how do you want to start with the rights of citizens when they are under suspicion or they are arrested?
All right, thank you, Lofty. And once again, thanks for the invite. Lofty, we can look at this from a specific point of view or a general point of view.
Mm-hmm.
A police has a legitimate right, as we put it, or if not a right, but a duty to enforce or execute his duties under the Police Act of Dominica. And he would be doing so in the interest of the state. And when he finds a citizen either committing an offense, about to commit an offense, or allegedly committed an offense, he gets involved. He can execute an arrest if he were to see a citizen committing an offense with his own eyes. He could perform an arrest if persons within the community were to inform him that a particular person has just breached the law. He could investigate a matter and upon findings by summons, drag the person before the court. Whatever it is, he gets that responsibility as a police officer in carrying out his duties. Now, a citizen can be a suspect if he or she would A, be committing the offense in the view of a citizen or a law enforcer, as in the case of a police. If someone makes an allegation that he committed an offense, as I had said before, or he is conspiring to commit an offense. And nowadays, we appear to have a government that is very thin-skinned or volatile in certain respects. And therefore, once there is a pronouncement or suspicion that there's going to be either a threat or something that could cause disorder, the police tend to act very quickly. In any case where someone is treated as a suspect, that suspect or that person has rights. And those rights are enshrined under the Constitution of Dominica. We live in a jurisdiction, just as in St. Vincent, where we hail constitutional supremacy. So we have in Dominica, under the Constitution of Dominica, Section 3, where rights of citizens are outlined. A right to be cautioned. So, for example, if a police were to treat person A as a suspect, he goes to the person's home. He can go with a warrant. He can go with just mere information. He could go to search. He could simply go there to ask the person to follow him or her to the police station. He could go to apprehend. He could just go there to have a conversation. Whatever it is, that person who is treated as a suspect has a right to be informed by the police why he is a suspect. So in other words, the police has to caution him. The police would say, sir, I am here investigating a matter and I would like to have a conversation with you. I am person A, I am constable number XYZ, and I would like to have a conversation with you. It could just be a mere introduction in his investigation process. Now, if that police officer has crystallized information that person A, in fact, is an offender, he may simply inform person A, I would like, or I'm detaining you, I'm arresting you on suspicion of committing offense B and C. At that stage, he goes on to tell the citizen, or he's supposed to tell the citizen, that you have a right to an attorney. That is part of the caution. This is universal criminal practice. So the police officer identifies himself. In some cases, if he has a police vehicle driving, there is a marked police vehicle. Some police officers may not necessarily give their number, their badge number. They may simply say that I'm arresting you on suspicion of committing offense B and C. But even then, he informs that citizen, or he's supposed to inform the citizen, that he has a right to an attorney. Having a right to an attorney gives that citizen an opportunity to call his or her attorney. So he or she could tell the police officer or officers that I would like you to call my attorney. And in some cases, the citizen may not have an attorney and may ask the police officer to contact an attorney for him. In any of these cases, this is part of criminal procedures. And those rights are protected under the Constitution of Dominica, and I suspect it would be the same for St. Vincent. Those constitutions are basically identical. Furthermore, the citizen would have a right to be treated fairly. So in other words, the police taking that person into detention or taking that person as an arrestee has to ensure that the citizen rights are protected, whereby he does not subject the citizen to inhuman and cruel punishments. He does not subjugate the citizen to answer questions by force, something that may have happened in the past or would have been happening in the past, where a police officer picks up a suspect and starts to beat him to force information out of him. Our law says that a subject or a citizen ought not to be exposed to inhumane and cruel punishment. This again is under constitutional protection in the Commonwealth of Dominica. In addition to our constitution, we do have criminal statutory provisions, which helps police officers and citizens to understand what are their rights. So the police officer is guided by law as to how to execute an arrest. And likewise, a citizen of Dominica is guided as to what his rights are. But beyond the statutory provisions, just as in St. Vincent and other Caribbean islands, we are signatories to international human rights entities. We have signed certain treaties, such as the Inter-American Declaration on Human Rights. So human rights has become universal. So apart from the constitutions, citizens are and should be aware that internationally, they're entitled to certain rights. Freedom of expression, freedom of association, etc. We'll get to all those. But on the onset, I just wanted to open the baton by simply saying that citizens have rights, and those rights are protected under the Constitution of Dominica. And also, a citizen has a right to appeal. A citizen has a right to challenge the action of police officers. So in some cases where citizens would have felt that they were wrongly treated, they could have been wrongly arrested, they could have been assaulted, they could have been subject to battery, they could be subject to false imprisonment. Citizens who are aggrieved by any of the above has a right to retain the services of an attorney and to take the matter to court to challenge the state. In Dominica, we have several cases like that.
All right, Josh, thank you basically for setting the foundation, as it were, to the conversation to come here. You said categorically clear that citizens do have rights, even if they are under suspicion or even leads to arrest at the end of the exercise. Thank you. Brother Bruce, your take in terms of your opening salvo, as it were, read the topic.
Right. So thank you, and Josh clearly played the shine off the ball. So it gives me a little more latitude to play the reverse sweep and the square cuts a little more comfortable now in cricketing legal terms. And let me just say from the get-go that Josh is absolutely correct. So for those of you who maybe...
Just remember, Brother Bruce, Alvin is the umpire, huh? Before that square cutting you
Right. So once Alvin knows that I have the right to review his decisions. Yeah.
Yes.
But
All right.
I wanted to say from the get-go, for those who might be second guessing the opening position that was taken by my colleague and friend Josh, that he's absolutely correct. That the citizens of Dominica, and I may invariably make references to St. Vincent and other Caribbean countries during the exchange this evening, but my conversation is going to be predominantly Dominica because this program is in Dominica. But if any viewer or listener happens to be listening and viewing and wants to get something that attach some explanation to what happens in the respective country, I'm sure Josh and I would be obliged to assist accordingly. But he is right that as we have this conversation about people who are suspected in Dominica, whether in Roseau or whether in Layu, you have rights as a suspect, and you equally have rights if you are living in Kuli as someone who's arrested. So that there are three things that we have to look at in helping our viewers and listeners to understand and appreciate where the sum total of this conversation is going to go. Firstly, it is the Constitution of Dominica, which is the supreme law of the land of Dominica. Secondly, it is the Criminal Code and Procedure, which is found at, I think, is chapter 12-01 of the laws of Dominica. And by the Constitution, I speak to the Constitution as it was when it came down from the British monarchy. And then thirdly, we would seek to, I believe invariably, to make references to some cases that were tried in the courts in the region, both inside and outside of Dominica, where there would have been the overplay of police officers in either dealing with suspects or executing or arrest someone. But it cannot and ought not to be resisted that for the people of Dominica, you must know that if a police officer suspects you of committing a particular wrong, you are just under suspicion. Your legal burden has not come onto your shoulder as yet. You are just a suspect. And as a suspect, you really and truly don't have any obligation. It is the police saying to you that a car went missing on Roseau Street, some street in Roseau, on Friday night, and you are suspected of being the person who stole that car. You do not have to say anything whatsoever to the police. The police may say, as George said, I want to have a conversation with you. I need to ask you a few questions about your whereabouts on Friday evening. My friends, my dear colleagues, my listeners, if you so choose, you can ask questions from the police as to your whereabouts, but you don't have a duty to go about answering any question as to whereabouts. And for those police officers who are listening to this program from Dominica, I want you to bear in mind that the Constitution of Dominica sets out at varying points how you are supposed to deal with the fundamental rights and freedoms of Dominicans and people who are either visiting or living in Dominica but are not citizens of Dominica. So that, get that clear in your heads. That has to happen. Now, one of the most recent sets of things, and I guess I'm going to close my opening salvo with this because it might spark some further discussion and debate. One of the recent trends that I've seen is where police will arrest someone. So the person says, or they have given a response to the police as to the missing car on the back street in Roseau. And then the police takes the position, give us your cell phone, put up your cell phone, let me check to see what I need to check in your cell phone. Police seem to think that they have a right phone as they please. That is I won't say it is entirely novel, but it is is an area of jurisprudence that is enhancing and developing, and I believe that the citizens of Dominica must also know what are their rights when it comes to that privacy right, which Josh has spoken to. That freedom of conscience right, because what you have as embodied within your phone, for example, maybe issue that addresses your conscience, maybe issues that addresses your privacy, and those, as Josh said, right, it will walk you through the Constitution, especially Chapter 1 of the Dominica's Constitution, to show you from Section 3 all the way down to I would say Section 12, where you'd see that your rights are properly and legally, justifiably enshrined and protected.
Yes, very, very, very much informed statement here, Brother Bruce, in terms of your opening statements as well. Thank you very much, as it were. You guys have really dug into the conversation, the topic / we are having here tonight. Alvin, based on what you heard thus far from these two legal minds, anything that you'd want to contribute as we continue on here?
Yeah, certainly. Yes, indeed, a very in-depth explanation in terms of citizens' rights and what a law enforcement officer can and cannot do. I got a question because there is a book I sometimes refer to that was published a couple of years ago by an attorney, Alex Lauren. And the book is entitled Your Constitution, Your Government, and You. And my question to both attorneys, the citizens have that right, but are they aware? And I think that's where the crux of the matter, and the last point that Brother Bruce ended on with regards to the cell phone. We had a situation like you referenced earlier that just occurred with an individual in Dominica, Brother Clint Roll. And what you find happening, and if I may use Dominica as an example, very often the police will do what Josh, I suppose, maybe some of it, not all of it, but they go to a person home, they go to Loftus' home, they say, oh, Loftus, we are there to investigate you, to search you because of X, Y, and Z. They pick you up, they bring you in, yes, you get an attorney, and all of that good stuff. And then you're put on $100,000 bail, a $50,000 bail. Then they take your phone, they take your passport, they say you cannot travel, and they have you in that suspense for maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. How do we get the citizens to understand that right? What I don't know if I'm coming in too early with that aspect of the conversation, but knowing the rights are there under the Constitution, Section 3 to 12, as Brother Bruce explained, but the awareness is not there from the citizen, then the abuse takes place. How do we overcome that? Any one of, Josh could maybe respond, and then Bruce could follow.
Right. No, thank you. I did listen to you carefully, Mr. Thomas. On the issue of how do we get citizens to know their rights? Like everything else, it takes education. Citizens have a responsibility and a duty to understand what are their rights. It does not take much. You can get a copy of the Constitution of Dominica, a soft copy online. You can speak to your attorney. You can speak to law enforcers. It does not take much to understand the basic rights. And Bruce mentioned it. One of the fundamental legal principles that every citizen must be aware of is that where he's been investigated or being treated as a suspect, he has a presumption of innocence. A man is innocent until proven guilty. And even where it is seen by the public that a man is committing what appears to be an offense, under our Constitution and under our legal statutory provisions, in our jurisprudence, that man is innocent until he's convicted of committing an offense. And in the process, the police officers responsible for the investigation, then the prosecution, has to treat that suspect as someone with rights, because the police officers are not the adjudicators. They do not preside over the guilt or innocence of that suspect. All they're responsible for is to investigate the matter, make sure that they follow the procedures, respect the rights of that citizen, and then take the matter before the court. In terms of the phone, yes, it has been a recent practice, and Bruce raised it, where police officers are quick to ask suspects for their cell phones. As you'll be aware, cell phones can show the last conversation held by the suspect with whoever it is, especially if there are other parties involved in the offense or the alleged offense. Cell phones hold data, and cell phones could be of great use to the police officers. But what we are finding is that most police officers do not seem to respect that a cell phone is a property, and the Constitution of Dominica gives every citizen a right to his or her property. We have not had any citizen in Dominica challenging that practice. However, I'm aware that there is a case from St. Kitts a few years ago where a particular person was arrested. His cell phone was taken by the police without his consent, without a search warrant. And it happened that that particular suspect had sexual explicit materials in the cell phone. The investigating officer shared or transferred that sexual content to a friend, and it went viral.
Josh, 1 minute, please. 1 minute. Just let me interject a little bit. Brother Bruce, your mic is on. Can you just turn it off, please? Yeah, we getting an unnecessary feedback. Thanks. Yes, Josh, thank you. Continue.
Yeah, so that suspect, as he became a victim because his cell phone was taken away from him without giving his consent. Now, I want the public to understand that when you are arrested, if you're arrested and the police says, give me your phone, or I would like to have your phone, you have a right to your phone. You can resist. You can tell the police officer that I am not giving you my phone, or you can consent. If you consent, then that gives the police legitimacy in going for your phone. If you do not consent, the police is supposed by law to get a warrant to take possession of your phone for the question of investigation. But we find indiscriminate possession or police taking possession of people's phones. As an attorney and being involved in criminal law on several occasions, I have challenged the police officers within the police station. I have not taken the matter to court. I'm hoping that at some point, someone will take this matter before the court, for the court to answer that question, because as it appears, the literal interpretation of the law under the Constitution of Dominica would suggest that a cell phone is someone's property, and the police is not supposed to just take someone's cell phone, go through it. And as it happened in St. Kitts, I was given that case in St. Kitts, where this police officer shared the sexual explicit content. It went viral, and the suspect eventually sued the state. He sued the police officer as an agent of the state, and he was successful. The court declared that the gentleman had a right to privacy, and the police had acted wrongfully. So to go back to the question about citizens knowing their rights, citizens need to pay more attention to Civic Vibes, because Civic Vibes have those kind of discussions which allow lawyers and law enforcers to disseminate information. They can retain lawyers. We do not have a culture where people retain lawyers, go for annual retention. Some people are involved in certain risky business, and they have not developed the culture of saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to retain Bruce for the next 5 years. I'm going to pay Bruce X amount. I can call up Bruce and ask him a question. I can call up Bruce for more information. We need to develop that culture. Just as we have doctors, I think that every citizen should have an attorney. Whether it's a 6-month retainer, an annual retainer, but an attorney plays a very important role in getting people to understand their rights, because that's not something being taught at school, not even at college, unless if you study law or you take a certain course which calls for a study of law. It's unlikely that an average citizen is going to come to that kind of education.
Yeah.
Let me just ask quickly though. On the question you said, if for the cell phone they could issue a warrant. Now, let me understand clearly in my mind. You're saying that a warrant can be issued by the police officer to confiscate property? Because this is your property. Could you just explain that for me?
Right. Keep in mind that when a police officer takes someone's cell phone, the police officer is not taking the cell phone for himself or for the state. The police officer would take possession of a cell phone as part of his investigation. He would say that he has interest in the cell phone. And therefore, if he cannot get consent from the suspect, he can go to a magistrate to authorize him to go and get that cell phone. But what we are seeing is that many police officers do not even ask the suspect whether he or she can have that cell phone. They simply take the cell phone and they go in the cell phone. As you know, they have technology now to open cell phones and to read whatever material is in there. Now, in our jurisdiction, even if the police were to obtain the information illegally, that information can still be admitted in court. So in some jurisdictions like the United States of America, you cannot use, fruits from a poisonous tree to prosecute a suspect successfully. But here in Dominica, even if a police officer does not, give a search warrant, he happens to go into your house looking for crabs and he finds cats and he decides he's going to charge you for cats. In the United States, in a situation like that, a suspect may get away, but here in our jurisdiction, it does not negate and vitiate or repudiate the offense.
Okay.
Josh.
Yes.
Just before Mr. Bruce comes in, just go over that point, Josh, for it to sink in, because I never knew that. And I know there are people on the live feed that did not know that as well. The last point you made about that if a police goes into your home for A and gets B, and you can still be prosecuted or found guilty on B.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. For those who are paying attention to American law or American courts, you would note that on several occasions, certain suspects would walk away because evidence would have been obtained illegally. In our jurisdiction, where a police officer did not follow the law or comply to the law as far as gathering evidence, obtains that evidence, and charges someone for committing an offense, the court will not allow that person to walk away because the evidence was, well, let's just say procedural, the procedures that the police officer used to get the evidence was wrong.
So Josh, follow up. How does the law now apply as it relates to the gathering of that evidence in an illegal manner? That is what I'm trying to understand or filter through now.
In other words, in a criminal procedure, as I said, you cannot use that as a ground to discontinue the matter. However, depending on the nature of the irregular or unlawful act used by the police officer, the suspect can move the court through judicial review. The suspect can ask the court, a civil judge, to review the procedures employed by that police officer and to declare it as illegal. And as part of the declaration that suspect would be seeking would be to stay the proceedings in the magistrate court or in the high court. And we do have a few cases like that in Dominica where suspects would have been of the opinion that the procedures employed by the police officers in the investigation process were irrational, irregular, or unlawful, and would be asking the court to make that declaration and to stay the proceedings. And that may very well be based on human rights and constitutional rights. So you can have a constitutional motion. So as I said earlier, take, for example, a police officer enters your house, and Bruce said it right. He says, Loftus Dura, I have reasons to believe that you were part of the protest on the Bayfront, causing public disorder and vandalism. And you do not answer him. He then proceeds to say, I tell you, you were part of that. What do you have to say? You don't answer him. And he proceeds to start beating you. He punches you in your eyes, in your face, in your stomach. And you, out of fear, decide, you start saying, yes, yes. Yes, I was there. Now you can challenge that in a court. If it's in the High Court voir dire, or you can challenge it in a preliminary where you would hear the evidence and you could give a no case submission. And the magistrate or the judge may decide, well, yeah, you were punched, but it doesn't take away the fact that you were part of what is deemed to be the public disorder. And therefore, an attorney may say, you know what, Lofty, let us do a constitutional motion, because the constitutional Dominica is the supreme law of the land. You're not going there to question whether what you did or did not do is lawful or not. You're going there to ask the court to declare that the police officer abused you, subjected you to cruel and inhumane conditions, subjected to arbitrary beatings, and in so doing, to stay the proceedings in the criminal court. So there are different avenues a citizen can use to exercise his rights and to be protected under the law. In other words, we do have judicial or legal framework under which a citizen can be protected. And Lofty, you must understand that a police officer is an agent of the state. Sadly to say that many police officers have not fully understood their duties, but that's a part of the conversation that we'll get to later on.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And just before we move to Brother Bruce, I'm giving out third hand, as it were, information of this real situation in Dominica that we had for the past week or so, whereby the brother Clint Rule that was arrested by the police, spent 2 nights in the cells, was put on bail, 75,000 EC dollars. The girlfriend reported to yours truly, saying that although she was not arrested by the police came to her, questioning her about certain matters. And in the process of this dialoguing with these police officers, her cell phone rang. And when her cell phone rang, she took the liberty, of course, and answered her cell phone, which Josh said is her property. She said to me that the police grabbed her cell phone from her hand and said she cannot answer that cell phone at that time. And it is just mind-boggling as to some of the things that our citizens go through, even when they are not under arrest by the police. So I just wanted to plug that in there as we're on cell phone and properties issue. But Brother Bruce, yes, you have been listening. You can chime in. Your mic is muted still.
I need to make some instructions. Yes, I am listening quite carefully to my friend Josh, and we've dived a little deep into chartered and unchartered waters somewhat. But I'd like for us to probably pedal back a bit, but just allow me to come forward. Because I want the people of Dominica to also know that not only are police officers allowed to exercise arrest, private citizens of Dominica can exercise arrest. In other words, Loftus, you can arrest Alvin. And let me say this very carefully so that the people in Dominica don't say that a Vincentian lawyer said, I can just arrest anybody. The Constitution of Dominica...
Lofty start arresting tomorrow morning. Come all the way to the top. I know first you need to arrest, Lofty.
Right. The Constitution of Dominica makes provision for what we call commonly across the region citizen arrest. But it has to be, by prescription of the Constitution, citizens are only allowed to do this if they are in a position where they are witnessing the commission of a felony. Not if you hear a felony has been committed. Not if you learn that a felony will be committed. The police has the right to arrest if they have information that this crime is about to be committed, if the crime is being committed, or if the crime has been committed. The only time the citizen of Dominica, the private citizen, has a right to arrest someone is if the felony is happening at the moment. you can, because of course it's your duty to try to bring that felony to an end. You can arrest that person and as soon as possible, take that person to a police constable or higher rank officers so that that person could do what is necessary and process that person to go before the magistrate court. So I wanted to clear that so that you don't think that it's only police officers could arrest you. Right. So I clear that in. That is subject to your liberties. Of course, the Constitution of Dominica in Section 1 speaks on your liberty as a subject on Dominican soil. But that liberty can be curtailed. Of course, like every right in your Constitution, those rights can be stepped upon if either you have done something that has stepped upon somebody else's right. Then, of course, legal authority will allow for you to be dealt with. Now, police officers can, having arrested you, they can keep you for questioning in relation to a matter for which you were a suspect or you are arrested for having been allegedly involved in a criminal act. The Criminal and Procedure Code of Dominica allows for the police officers a maximum period of 24 hours. 24 hours within which to question you, seek what answers they wish to seek, and make a determination whether or not you are going to be charged and taken before a magistrate. They have a maximum of 72 hours in Dominica. And Josh, if I have the facts in Dominica off, you can tell me when I go off. Because I want to speak purely to my Dominican brothers and sisters this evening. Within 72 hours, they must take you to a magistrate. And if they don't, then Josh begins to ring the bell about certain legal infringements. And that's why I say we would touch some deep waters, maybe tonight or maybe another program, Loftus and Alvin, whether or not you have been unlawfully arrested, whether you have been maliciously arrested, whether or not you have been unlawfully detained. Those questions begin to jump at you as we go down to section 3.3 of the criminal code that deals with the time frame that you could stay in custody in that sense. But I want to touch very quickly because the question that did come though is how do we, Alvin, that was your root question. How do we help the Dominican people to be better aware of these rights? And Josh is correct that what you guys are doing on Civic Vibes is exceptional. And this is part of the educational thrust. It is organizations like the Consumer Affairs Association in Dominica that has to do some of it. It is Parent Teachers Association that has to do some of it, focusing on the Education Act of Dominica, the Consumer Affairs on the Consumer Act of Dominica, the Public Relations Department of the Royal Dominica Police Force. I don't know if Royal is still in it because, a republic. But the public relations arm of the police force should be engaging citizens on that side of it. Consumer rights and so on and so on. So everybody has a role to play because the foundation ought to be laid in our primary, secondary, and college institutions. So as you come out from those, you can then have it, and of course, the University of Roseau or Cooley or Layu or whatever part in Dominica on the street blocks. Some of it could also happen. So it is important that we understand that these things will happen. But allow me very quickly, because I saw that a few fancies were tickled on the cell phone issue. Josh, I've got news for you. I've got news for you. Because in this region, we have already punched that particular bag that you're saying that you'd like somebody to take to court. And I'm going to tell you the examples. In St. Kitts, the matter is R versus David Brandt. In Tortola, British Virgin Island, The matter is the Queen versus St. Elmo Garaway. St. Elmo Garaway was not a cell phone. The police had gone to his house with a warrant to look for drugs and guns. And in the process, they seized his CCTV system. And they went and they searched that CCTV system. The real reason they had gone there was to try to find out if a wanted man was actually being entertained at his home. And I made an application to exclude that evidence from the criminal trial. And the court upheld my application, and no evidence that they got from the CCTV system was admitted into evidence. None. We had another case. So if you're taking note, R versus Michael Robin, again in the British Virgin Islands. And this might be really classical for Dominicans to hear. This case is a case where the police had gone to this home in search for Mr. Robin on allegation of a murder. When they got there, they met him with drugs and a large quantity of money and drug paraphernalia. They seized all of it. And they also took his cell phones and his girlfriend's cell phones. His girlfriend gave the password to her phone. Mr. Robin decided, I am not doing it. The Crown charged Mr. Robin under the Cybercrime Act for failing to open his cell phone to the police officers. Fortunately, I was Mr. Robin's lawyer, and I challenged that in the High Court. Essentially a constitutional argument between the DPP, the Attorney General, and Mr. Robin, and the court came down ruling in my favor that Mr. Robin did not have to open his phone for the police officers. And the court ordered that monies and stuff that were taken from him, that those should be given back to him because the warrant was had under false pretext, similar to the Garaway one. Then there is R versus Farrell et al. In the BVI, the Crown was able to access information from their phone through the telecommunications providers. The evidence was excluded. The court ruled that the Telecommunication Act of the BVI makes provision for the judge to be the authority to issue warrants to search and to seek such information. The warrant was issued by a magistrate. As a result, evidence gone, guys were acquitted. In the matter of R versus Benjamin et al. In 2024, most recently, again, the Crown had gone for two separate sets of warrants from the court, got two separate sets of warrants, and ended up illegally searching the gadgets of these guys. Again, the evidence was not admitted, and again, there was an acquittal. And Josh, you'd like to hear this one. Just on Thursday, I had a matter before the court right here. The Commissioner of Police versus Okello James, where the Crown relied on evidence of a cell phone, a satellite phone, and GPS devices that were attached to a boat. I made an application to the court that, and I want you guys to hear this now. I want you guys to hear this. The police already had the gadgets in their possession because the allegation is that the guys ran off the block and phones were left, and then the police took custody of the boat and took the GPS devices off the boat. So they had custody of it. But guess what? When you read David Brandt and you read Garaway, and there's a case out of Canada that is called R versus VU, VU, R versus VU. When you read those cases, the central theme of that story is that whilst you have a warrant to search the device, to seize the device, you must get a separate warrant to search the device. So if the police have a warrant to take your phone, Alvin, because the magistrate gave them permission to seize your phone as part of the investigation, they have to have a separate warrant to search the phone. And if they don't, then that evidence really and truly ought not to be admitted because it is illegally obtained. And Josh is right. That is a matter of the exercise of discretion. But essentially what the Evidence Act across the region would say is that it is the what we call in law the probative value versus the prejudicial effect. The general principle is the more probative the value of the information to the Crown, the more prejudicial it is against the defendant. So as probative value rises, prejudicial effect also rises. And so generally, adjudicators of the law then have to rule that it is not safe for such evidence to be admitted. So Josh, there's a little bit of help on the way to assist your clients in Dominica. Turn to those authorities and let the people of Dominica know that even if a police take your phone through a warrant, they can't go into the phone without a separate warrant. Because the law and the teaching is that the phone is a place unto itself. In the last matter I refer you to, the Okalaji's matter, the Crown sought to argue that the GPS devices were not as personal and private and didn't touch privacy issues. I was able to rebut that, and the court ruled in my favor, and all evidence again is omitted.
I know we're going to take the break just now, Lofty, but I just want Brother Bruce to, because there's a new phenomenon now coming on board. How, or has there been, or how do you treat with social media? Because the case in Dominica, for example, the guy was picked up on the basis of some exchange that took place on Facebook, on his Facebook page. So you're on your social media interacting, and the police come in and do their Gestapo and say, hey, you said this, or you do this, or what have you. And on the basis of that, I'm coming to pick you up. How do we deal with that social media now that we are faced with? We are...
Well, two things very quickly. Two things very, very quickly. I'm sure that Dominica has in place, because the legislative suite came across the entire region under the Cybercrime Act across the region. So I'm sure Dominica has it. Dominica doesn't?
No.
Oh,
Just said no.
No.
All right, Josh. So if there is not the Cybercrime Act, then fine. I tell you the answer to that, Alvin, is pure and simple. Can we speak to where the information is published?
When you say where, it was on Facebook.
Yeah, where is Facebook?
It's in the whole universe. It's not
in the whole universe.
Well, the internet.
It's not in the whole universe. So Facebook, as a business model, exists and is registered in the United States of America.
Okay, yeah, you're right on that. Okay.
So, who controls the provision of information coming to and from Facebook? Is it anybody in Dominica?
No.
Is that published in Dominica, or is it published in the United States of America?
In the United States.
So again, it's for Josh and others to find and use that loophole. I had one similar case in St. Vincent where a young man was accused of threatening the life of Prime Minister Gonzalez. And I represented him in that matter and was able, well, of course, once I demonstrated to them that they don't stand a single chance of even winning this matter in court. They pressured him by keeping him in St. Vincent for a few months so he couldn't go back to the USA. And then I asked for bail review. He went back and then came back down for the case. And when he came back down, they said that they were not proceeding with the matter, they nolly process. Because clearly, you have certain things that you have to prove in these matters. We can't do all the legalese on the program tonight.
No. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Some of it, I have to leave people to go to Josh.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But Bruce,
Yes.
just to add to what you were saying in response to Alvin's question, it appears to me that in that case, your client may not have made any remark, any confession, because that can make a difference. The police picks up the suspects and he says, I understand that you made X remark on Facebook or on Instagram. And you say, yeah, I made the remark, you repeat it, yeah, I want to kill it. I did say I want to kill the prime minister. How, in a situation like that, would your defense be the same and would you be successful? Taking into consideration if the other elements of the offense are satisfied.
It is tight because at the end of the day, the Crown still has to advance that the publication was made on Facebook or the threat was issued on Facebook. And even if a person may have said, yes, I did, unless that person puts that in a statement that inculpates that person, a versatile defense attorney could very well advise the client that, look, that's not what we're latching on to. That's not that you were not told at the time that you were supposed to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth in your statement, and that you could be prosecuted if you give false information. We don't know at what stage the person said that. Was the person cautioned?
Exactly.
So there are, as you know, there are lots of variables.
Exactly.
Again, it is for you to do your legal play in your office.
Yeah. Good point.
Well, guys, I've been listening, and for sure I am learning a few things tonight. And as we said from the preamble of this discussion, folks, you will be learning some things tonight. Folks, it is 4 minutes past 7 o'clock, and about that time, each and every time we normally take a break, I saw already some people say, no break. Let's go.
And they're already calling for part 2.
Part 2.
So guys, stand by. You all may have to come back the next week.
But let's take that all-important break talking to where Mr. Nasir Fontaine is singing about justice. We're going to take that break and we'll be right back with you guys. Remember, folks, the numbers to call into the program, those of you are here and may want to come in and contribute or chime in on the conversation. The numbers are 245-2396 or 615-9470. Let's take that break. We'll be back in just a bit.
Justice, and everybody needs some justice, and we got to have justice. Oh, every people need some justice. Lord, justice. Down in the ghetto, we need justice. And we got to.
Brother Nasir Fontaine calls this one justice.
All the people cry for justice. Yeah. Apartheid got to go. We got to give justice a chance to flow now. Racism, well, that can't last. Racial discrimination is a thing of the past. So
there's what John is saying, part 2 and part 3.
We got to act. Justice. Yeah, we cry justice. Come on and give the
folks, just in case you want to call into the program after the break, the numbers are scrolling on your screen as we speak.
By any means there must be justice, Lord, and we need justice. Check out the people cry for justice. Oh, yeah, justice. I know the people need some justice.
What a program indeed.
Let justice flow. We're gonna fight to make it so.
Just in case you tune in late, we're talking to attorney Joshua Francis out of Dominica and Mr. Israel Bruce, attorney as well out of St. Vincent and Grenadines.
Let the justice strong.
Two very erudite brothers in the field.
I wanna let you know there won't be no peace.
And for sure, imparting the information.
Yeah. Let justice run down as a river. Oh, yeah. And righteousness as a mighty stream. Justice for one and justice for all. Too much division, too much of class.
Mary Lawyer is writing here, to win a case in Dominica, you have to be very wealthy, meaning you have to have good money to fight these officers in court. Brother Alvin, not Alvin, Arundel Thomas, good evening to you, my brother, on YouTube.
Justice run.
And all our fans and friends on YouTube as well.
Lord, please. And righteousness as a mighty stream. Justice for one and justice for all.
Well, folks, that is how we do it on Civic Vibes each and every time in terms of the disseminating of much needed information to you, the public out there. Let's get back to the panelists here, Brother Joshua Francis and also Brother Israel Bruce. Let's get back here. Folks, yes, after the break, we were on a high. Can we continue right where we were?
Yeah. Let me, Brother Bruce, let me just ask a quick question of you. You refer to the Cybercrime Act.
Yes.
You said that it's not in effect or it's not in Dominica. Could you just in a brief nutshell tell us what that act covers and what protection it provides to the citizens?
Right. As part of our response system to persons using cyberspace to commit criminal activities, there was a suite of legislative instrument that were passed across the region to assist the region in responding to that same issue. And that is why I was saying with the person who's charged or who has possibly been charged in Dominica to have said certain things about the Prime Minister, the Cybercrime Act may have allowed that person to be caught in the web, because that is what the Cybercrime Act sets out to do, to trap people, to find people who are committing offenses in cyberspace. And there's several sections of it. A key section of it is where, I'll tell you, for example, where people take pornographic material. You're in a relationship with Mary Lou, and you guys exchange pornographic material as adults. There's a breakup, and you decide, all right, I want to hurt you so bad, I'm going to put it out there. That's a crime in cyberspace. It may be that you find some material that are not so good about Loftus, and you want to get someone out of Loftus. You tell him, you need to find me $100,000 Loftus. Otherwise, hey, I have these, I'll put them out there. So the Cybercrime Act seeks to address some of those. And in the civil realm, where defamatory statements are made in cyberspace, so that's what the suite of legislation sought to address: crimes committed in cyberspace.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So as we punch forward, I still want us to, in the deepness of the conversation, to keep our brothers and sisters in Dominica steadfast in terms of the suspicion and the arrest. So that I want to say to my colleagues that that the Criminal and Procedure Act of Dominica allows at section 12, subsection 6, allows for the police officers to use force in the process of executing an arrest. Now, this becomes a boiling point for Dominica, I am sure, but other countries across the region, because ever so often, hot-headed police officers, realizing that they have some authority and decide that this is their ideal chance to abuse people who they have arrested. It is not a carte blanche authority for police officers in executing an arrest, whether on a suspected person or someone who is alleged to have committed an offense. You don't just use force arbitrarily. The section 13 of your constitution in Dominica says that if the police must use force, either force that they use in trying to detain you, or force used in trying to enter your premises, the section 13 of that particular piece of legislation, the Criminal and Procedure Code or Act, says that that force must be reasonable. So that if a police comes into your house to commit an arrest, they ask you to open the door, you refuse to open the door, reasonable force may very well be to kick in that door. But if having kicked in the door and you are there and the police comes in and shoot up your fridge and your stove and your TV. That force is not reasonable unless there was a shootout between you and the police and the shots rang all over the place. If a police says to you, you're under arrest, and you are quietly going with the police therefore doesn't have the right to decide to start beating on you because of the allegation that you committed an offense. And that is why Josh said that the police are at the investigative end. They're not determining innocence or guilt. And so they should not take it in their hands when they're arresting people to exact vengeance on people by beginning to beat them and assault them, because it is wrong, it is improper, and you are violating the Constitution of Dominica that says that the Dominican citizens and people residing within the walls of Dominica ought not to be treated inhumanely. And the moment you start treating people like that, it is tantamount, I say respectfully, to inhumane treatment, and the people of Dominica must know that they must not accept this, that when this happens, there's a recourse, you go to the civil court and you seek justice against the police authority, well, the officer who has done it, the Attorney General of Dominica, who is the officer in whose name you can bring action in Dominica against. In fact, when I was prepared for this case, Alvin, I was reading this case from Dominica. I think it was a former floor manager who was arrested in his vehicle and a female friend, and they were taken all the way to the Rosa police station. He was handcuffed and so forth, and they brought an action against the state and won, because the court found that there was not any probable or reasonable cause for them to proceed to arrest him and to handcuff him and to take him into Rosa police station. They kept him there for about 45 to 50 minutes. So people must know that whilst police have the powers of arrest, police officers who are listening to me in Dominica, please know that you're not supposed to use that power as arbitrary as you feel. It's not because you don't like a person, you don't like what they're wearing, you don't like what they're saying. It is not your right, one, just to arrest them for arresting them sake, and it is not your right to assault them and abuse them for abusing them sake.
Josh, I know you want to come in, Josh, and make a few comments because you've been listening for a while. But in making your comments, I want to pose a question as well, because we are in a social media era right now. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And that is where everybody is going, the citizens as well as the politicians. They pitch there, they're campaign there and everything. If, for example, based on what Bruce has said so far, I'm just painting a scenario. So Alvin is arrested because he made a comment on Facebook. The police come, they pick me up, they take me to the police headquarters. They said I said X, Y, and Z. I admit to what I said on Facebook. I maybe even go to the extent where under pressure and duress, I may apologize because I'm there, my lawyer's not there yet, I'm not sure what to do. And therefore, I am now charged for a crime of incitement or whatever the case might be. As Bruce was saying, Facebook is operated outside. How does my apology that I gave and fits into the whole scheme of things, again, as we're looking at the citizens' right? I'm not trying here to adjudicate the case, because that's as it is now. And somebody made the point on the feed that this is causing the average citizen a lot of money, because one, they have to obtain attorney, legal representation. They are placed on bond. This individual, I understand, is on a $75,000 bond. So somebody have to sign up that bond for him. If he don't get somebody, I guess he'll be locked up. His passport is confiscated. His cell phone is confiscated. All of that pending something that may go for the next 24 months, 36 months, 48 months, who knows when. And that is what the citizens is faced with. How does the citizen, what is left for him or her? You're muted, you're muted.
Josh, you're muted. We're not hearing you.
Yes.
Yes.
Earlier on, Bruce mentioned about challenging statements made by suspects or by police officers. If a suspect were to make a statement under duress, undue influence, or by force, his attorney can challenge that perceived confession. So in other words, somewhere along in the trial, the attorney can raise the issue and to make a submission to ask the court to disregard that confession. It could be on several grounds. As you mentioned, the suspect could be subject to undue influence. In the absence of his attorney, he was threatened, he could have been beaten. And in a matter like that, there's a high probability of success because a confession really is supposed to be done voluntarily, not under duress. The suspect ought not to be coerced. And usually, more seasoned police officer would get an independent witness to take that confession or that statement from the suspect, because it's easy for police officers to support police officers. So the more savvy police officers probably go on the street to call a walker-by, a third party, and to ask that he or she avail himself or herself to stand as a witness for a suspect to make a confession. So there are several ways. And then I spoke about the civil court, where a suspect can retain an attorney to do a judicial review, to stay proceedings in the criminal court. Because there are times, as Bruce mentioned, he has done several cases in challenging the admissibility of evidence. And it's interesting why at that point, Bruce had some success in getting the court not to admit information which was derived from cell phones, where the police officers did not get the consent or did not have a search warrant, either to possess the cell phone and to search your cell phone, or both. Because I have a case in Dominica, it's over 10 years old, where similarly, a gentleman was arrested and the police officers happened to go into his cell phone and found pictures of a certain content which is unlawful. And they're using that, or they're trying to use that in court, basically to convict him. They have no other evidence. They don't have any witness when the alleged offense took place except the cell phone information. And I made a submission and the magistrate rejected it. I made another submission and she rejected it. And the case is just in the system. And I'm just waiting to see where this case is going, if it comes to completion, because maybe the state has realized they have a problem and the case is now in a bottleneck. Given the cases that Bruce has made mention of, they could serve as authorities to challenge that practice in Dominica. Now, just to go back to many things that Bruce said in terms of the arrest, police officers will pick up a citizen of Dominica, and it's very painful to see that the citizens are placed at several cells in Dominica. So, for example, the Rosa police station, a man is picked up, he's placed in the cell, and then the police officer leaves him there, enjoys, go on his frolic, go to a party, go at his home, sleep. A day passes, 2 days passes, 3 days, the 72 hours is up. The police officer realizes, but wait a minute, I have not completed my statements. I have not completed gathering evidence. So he releases the suspect and rearrests the suspect because the 72 hours has now exceeded. And he feels that this guy, the Constitution clearly says that he has a barrier in terms of time, and he has met that barrier, and therefore, for an extension, he releases the guy as he walks in the police station yard. He's rearrested. In my view, that's an abuse of the process. That's a heavy hand by the police, and that is something that also needs to be challenged. I don't know whether Bruce would have done any of those cases in St. Vincent.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right, Josh, that this abuse has been frowned upon, I know, by some magistrates in St. Vincent. So we bear that in mind. What I wanted to also augment your presentation by saying is this. You were talking about when you're giving statements to police officers. Look, one of the things that I would say to persons, if you know that that which has been extracted from you in the name of a statement, that it was extracted from you either by something that was said to you, either a promise or a threat, or something withdrawn from you. I remember one occasion, a young lady was told that she would spend the entire weekend at the police station and would not get to see her children. And as a result, she buckled and gave a statement. No, that is not a voluntary statement. And so it can be challenged. Circumstantially, in that sense, you can see if you refuse it to give, and all of a sudden you say, look, I just gave it no because this is what was said to me. It's whether or not the magistrate agrees with it or not. One of the things that layperson Dominica can do, that even if you give that involuntary statement, at some point you're asked to sign it. Refuse to sign it. A refusal to sign a statement that you yourself give, according to the police, is an indication to the court that something is amiss. Why would you voluntarily give a statement to the police and then when asked to sign to say, this is what to me, you are refusing to sign it? It's normally a telescopic message to the court that something is not right. And if this person says, I was threatened to give the statement, there's a greater likelihood that the person was indeed threatened, and that is why the person did not proceed to sign the statement. So that is one way of dealing with it. And I like doing other matters at time, Josh. So maybe I have to get admitted in now, and you would have to tag team on that.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Bruce, because I remember the last time you were there, we were discussing some issues, and the question was raised of the formation of a civil legal association.
Something like ACLU in America and the Caribbean.
Right, an ACLU in the Caribbean. And this is something that I'm still very right up my mind. Just that I've been so busy. But I think this is something we really have to pursue, to have an ACLU to represent persons in the region, in Dominica and across the region. And I can see from the discussion we're having and the one we had previously with yourself, Josh, and I believe there were two other attorneys on that last conversation we had, or one other attorney, that this is more than real, because just listening to Josh a few minutes ago, when he talks about his client that have a matter pending 10 years. Now, look at this individual that we referenced based on the last recent matter with Mr. Roll. His passport is confiscated. He's on a $75,000 bail. His cell phone is confiscated. So literally, he can't do business as an individual. He's going to go to the court, hopefully, I think in January, whenever that date is. The matter may or may not be heard. It's postponed, and it's postponed, and it's postponed, and it's postponed. And
Alvin, sorry to cut you, Alvin, but indeed, and I'm sure there are capable, competent lawyers in Dominica, like Josh and Cara Shillingford and others, who I'm aware of. But nothing stops the attorney representing whoever that gentleman or that lady happens to be from making an application to the court to vary the bail conditions, or to ask that the person be granted a passport if they have to travel. I have had situations where I have asked for bail conditions to be reviewed, where I was able to get my client's passport. My client went, traveled overseas, came back, and handed back their passport. Traveled again, came back, handed in their passport. You just have to, in that case, we had to provide the information at least 2-3 days ahead so that the necessary preparation could be made for him to collect the passport, go where he has to go, and come back. I mean, once the post is not seen as a flight risk, which is the argument that the lawyer has to get over, I don't see why a post has to be enslaved to those conditions.
All right, guys, thank you very much. We have someone waiting on the line for some time. Let's see if we can facilitate that call. Caller, good evening, Civic Vibes, you're live.
Yes, good evening, good evening. I just want to say that this program that I believe it's supposed to be aired, not even on Facebook alone. And I believe like if we have to come together to raise some funds to have that particular program aired on Q95, the most listened to radio station in Dominica, because he's a wealth of knowledge I've been learning tonight there and information. And to be honest, that's Vinci lawyer. We need to invite him to Dominica, because a lot of things, as a common man on the ground, I never knew that police could just take your phone and they didn't have the rights to take your phone and all that. And to be honest, that man there is a brain. He just add to my list of listen to people, Simeon Joseph, Lennon Matthew, and Anderson Jolly. And trust me, we have to try to see how we can buy a little slot on Q95 to have that particular program be repeated, and we need a part 2. And according to Majon, maybe a possibly part 3. Good night.
All right, caller, thank you very much for your endorsement thereof of this program. Thank you very, very much indeed. Thanks for your listening. Yes, panel, we are
Loftus, let me just make a quick correction. Let me make a quick correction. I think I said the Dominica case with the flow manager was the one where there was success. I think in that one, there was no success. There was a St. Kitts case. It was a young lady by the name of Shannon Bass, B-A-S-S, against the Attorney General of St. Kitts and Nevis and Sergeant Vernon Williams. In that case, there was a success. I think what happened, the police had asked Bass to come out from the vehicle, and the police proceeded to arrest and handcuff Bass and everything. And they took that matter to the court, and the court ruled that the arrest was unlawful and unwarranted. In fact, the compensation that the court ordered was in the tune of $40,000 compensation.
Wow. Wow.
Let me read something on the feed quickly, and either Josh or yourself.
Give me a second, guys.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Alvin. Go ahead.
Yes.
One of the persons on the feed posted.
Sorry, I think my...
Yeah. One of the persons on the feed posted, we need an organization such as Lawyers Without Borders. Due to the limited number of lawyers who are willing and or able to do pro bono work, many persons who need representations are unable to get that representation. How do you speak with that? And that is I want to add to that. You mentioned what an attorney can do in Dominica's jurisdiction. But I don't know to what extent you're familiar with matters pending or in a hold. As someone who practiced in St. Vincent and I guess some other islands of the region, what concerns do you see or challenges with matters not being dealt expeditiously, and in light of the question that the person on the feed just raised? Either you or Josh could respond. Josh, if you want to take first, and then Bruce could come in.
All right. We do have a problem with matters being stuck in the court. And that problem is administrative. And the government of Dominica has attempted to cure that problem by retaining more magistrates. So we have had an expansion in the magistracy. A matter of fact, as we speak, we have a magistrate from Sri Lanka. So that's one of the ways in which the government is trying to take care of that backlog in the magistrate court. A matter of fact, interestingly, a few months ago, if you paid attention, you would have noted that the High Court criminal judge overturned or discontinued a matter involving murder matter, as we would say it, on the ground of undue delay. The judge felt that too many years had elapsed and the state had not done enough to prosecute the suspect, and therefore the matter was discontinued. And that goes back to the rights of citizens. One of the rights of citizens is that when they are arrested, the police officer or officers must ensure there is a prompt trial. The prosecution is supposed to ensure there is a prompt trial. The trial is supposed to take place within a reasonable time. But yet we have all these cases that sometimes 10 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, and just in the system. And it comes with a price. You mentioned some of which, Alvin, where you have a serious offense. Somebody has been accused of committing murder, treason, GBH, something very serious. His passport is taken away from him. Travel documents are taken away from him. He has to report every week at a police station somewhere in Dominica. And 5 years is going, 6 years is going, 7 years, 8 years. No. And the case isn't going anywhere. Now, it is not always the fault of the court. Sometimes we lawyers, we use strategies to discontinue, to get a matter, to frustrate the system, hoping that the matter will be discontinued. So I'm trying to be fair here to say that some cases are stuck in the system, not always because of the court. Sometimes we as lawyers, we use strategies. I put that on public record. So we may say that we are unavailable for the matter. So the matter comes up on Monday, we send a letter asking for an adjournment. It comes up again, we send another letter, or we find a reason to adjourn it. So all these are part of the strategies, but we cannot not admit that our legal system here in Dominica is a very slow one. I cannot comment for St. Vincent, Bruce will speak to that, but there is no reason why a criminal matter should take on average 5 years. Somebody has been arrested on suspicion of committing an offense. It should not exceed 2 years. We still use this traditional preliminary procedure where when someone is accused of committing a very serious offense, he is charged with an indictable complaint. So in other words, the offense is considered to be very serious, and therefore he goes through a preliminary process where the magistrate listens to the evidence to ascertain whether there is reasonable and probable cause for his arrest and for the matter to be committed to the High Court. In most jurisdictions in the Caribbean, now they're using paper committal, so that has expedited the process. We still have most of the courts using the traditional method where every witness of the state is allowed to give evidence or examination in chief. So that takes a long time. So by the time that matter is ended in the magistrate court, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years would have passed already. It is then placed on the High Court list another couple of years. So one of the ways in which we can correct this delay is to probably have more paper committals, or probably do away with the traditional preliminary method. Actually, I think in some jurisdictions they have done that. They have actually done away with the traditional preliminary inquiry method just for the purpose of allowing citizens to get a prompt trial, because that's part of our constitutional right, a prompt trial. A trial is supposed to be done within a reasonable time.
Yeah, and just to chime in here, you speak about the paper committal method. Can you just dive a little deeper into that to explain what that process involves to expedite the process?
Right, so a person is accused of committing a serious offense. The investigating police officer is responsible to gather evidence. He gets direct evidence, indirect evidence. He takes statements from individuals or from witnesses. Those statements are, of course, signed by him and the state witnesses. He then presents a bundle before the court. So he goes to the court and he says, person A, who has been charged for murder, is here, and we have put a bundle together. The defense counsel, if there is a defense counsel, is served with the bundle. In the absence of counsel, the accused is served with the bundle, the state has the bundle, and the court allows the defendant or the accused or counsel for the accused to inform whether he or she wishes to cross-examine any of the witnesses. So the lawyer can look at the bundle and say, I reserve my questions for the High Court. He may just, take it that this person, there's enough evidence, a prima facie evidence, there's more than that for the person to be committed to the High Court, and therefore reserves his questions for the High Court. So in that situation, the magistrate allows the state to bring in their evidence if there's anything to be admitted, if there, for example, a firearm was involved, to bring in the firearm to be admitted. And upon the completion of that, the matter is committed to the High Court. So a situation like that can happen, in four hearings, 2 hearings, 3 hearings, as opposed to, 4 years.
Yeah. Yes, Bruce.
On the earlier, go ahead, Lofty, because the earlier thing of the Lawyers Without Border, I think, or something like that. Did you hear me?
No.
Yes, I heard you.
I didn't get that.
If you want to comment on the one of the persons on the feed talk about the fact that there need to be some collaboration across the region and maybe have something like Lawyers Without Border. You just use a term actually.
Okay.
And how do you see that? Because it seems to me from what you've said so far, your system seems to be working efficiently, if I may use that word, or a little quicker than, say, in Dominica's case.
Well, I don't know. how much quicker the system work, and let's say St. Vincent and the Grenadines comparatively speaking to that of Dominica. What I can say to the listener, viewer, messenger is that the concept of lawyers without border is not an impractical concept. In fact, I think in some regards, it is practically happening without that sort of name being attached. As I speak to you now, I am currently abroad. I'm doing legal matters. I'm not in St. Vincent. I know I worked with Tara Shillingford from Dominica in that vaccine mandate case against the government in St. Vincent. I work with Ewart Lane out of Grenada on that same matter. So the idea of cross-bordering of lawyers is permissible. And that's why I said to Josh, all I need to do is to get called in Dominica, and you could get called in St. Vincent, and we could crisscross like that. You might have a matter in Dominica, you want me to deal with it. I might have one in St. Vincent, I want you to deal with it. So you come down, or you come up to Tortola, deal with the one up here, I go across to Dominica. Once I'm admitted to practice and he's admitted to practice, that is possible. All that has to happen is that we have to make the necessary applications for admissions to the relevant bars for practice. So the lawyers without borders is practical in that sense. Yeah, of course.
All right. Well, we'll soon have an ACLU for the region.
Yeah, but just to interject here quickly, I suspect that Alvin is going down the road of asking lawyers in Dominica to present themselves to the more pro bono work, particularly where persons appear to be being politically prosecuted.
True, that's true too.
Because what we are finding, I don't know for St. Vincent again, Bruce is in the best position to speak about the situation in St. Vincent. But in more recent times, we are having more citizens being arrested, either for incitement or threat.
Mm-hmm.
And in those cases, sometimes you have the same lawyers presenting themselves to represent those citizens. We have, like St. Vincent, we have a bar association, but for some reason, most lawyers prefer to distance themselves from those type of matters because they look at it as being political. And either out of fear for political reprisal, or they fear they will not get work from the government or associates of the government, they don't avail themselves to represent the citizens. So what Alvin may be calling for is to stir the interest of more lawyers to present themselves to represent citizens, particularly in situations like that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
The way I could see that being practical, and I have in the past, I am sure that Dominica has, like St. Vincent has, an expansive scholarship program where young people get scholarship to go off to study. Yes. And I don't have a difficulty. I mean, some of these young students returning are quite capable and competent. Where you say part of that scholarship that you get is that you must at least in your first 5 or 10 years of practice, if you go into public practice, offer representation in XYZ number of matters of your choosing. Then there is a legal aid, not a full-fledged legal aid system. I know St. Vincent has something of a legal aid sort, not full-fledged, and I presume Dominica has it too, where persons charged for certain crimes, right? It's for one, it could be on the urging of the Bar Association that practitioners offer themselves, have a list of practitioners who say, look, I'm willing to do a pro bono or 2 pro bonos maximum per year. And if you have 20 practitioners offering to do 2, that is 40 pro bono assignments for the year. Like in St. Vincent, once I'm in court and a matter pops up and the person is unrepresented and my schedule seems fitting, I put my hand up and say to the court, look, I'm prepared to serve amicus for this person. I've done it on several occasions, and I've known other lawyers who do it. So I challenge my Dominican colleagues. Yes, we have our loans to pay back. We have our lives to live. Unlike other professionals, although we get beat down all the time, but there are times when you have to, in the face of what you see happen, if it is that you are a practitioner for the purpose for which you have been driven to the practice, if it is not driven by the family who has coerced you to become a lawyer because it is supposed to be part of the family pride, if it is not driven to become a lawyer because you think it is a field for quick or direct enrichment, if you're driven into the practice of law because you have a passion for injustices meted out to the poor and the underprivileged, then once you see these things happening in the courtroom, it's a natural instinctive reaction that you put your hands up and say, look, I will assist this person. So it must come from the gut. Otherwise, it becomes almost like unnatural and you will give up your best. So I want to appeal to my colleagues in Dominica, not asking a great deal. If you say in this 12 months, I am prepared to do, even if you say one pro bono matter, and the Bar Association can have 25 lawyers who are committed to do one pro bono matter in the High Court. That is 25 matters in the High Court that could get where people can assist themselves. They're the lawyer for pro bono. Except there is some sort of conflict between the lawyer and the issue.
Let me just inject one quick wrench, if I may say, in the works. Unlike St. Vincent, Dominica has a unique situation, and I say so very cautiously. We have, as you may be aware, what is called a Citizen by Investment Program, CBI.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the lawyers are engaged in that activity and making more money out of that activity. Unlike St. Vincent do not have a CBI program. And that is one thing I will commend the government of St. Vincent for never having gone down that road to sell their sovereignty by selling their...
We are different wavelengths on that. We could have a conversation on that, maybe not here tonight, but if you want to, we could have it here, but we are absolutely different wavelengths.
Absolutely. But I think that too might be the contributing factor, because here's that lawyer feels, well, boy, I can make $2 million out of that passport arrangement or whatever, and not having to do that. So I'm just throwing that in, as we say, that's a matter that can be discussed at another forum, at another program. But I agree with you entirely.
I'll tell you what, Alvin, I'll tell you what very quickly.
Yes.
If part of the problem with the CBI program in Dominica, as I understand it, it is the way it is conceived.
That's right.
And if the Dominica CBI program is conceived in such a way where you have experts who are capable of assessing, vetting people before they can be considered the application based on their investment, because I've had quite a bit of conversation with Dominicans, and you almost sense that a lot of people get passport but not necessarily making investment in Dominica. That's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not purely a citizenship by investment program as opposed to what you call it. So what has been advocated in St. Vincent is not what I hear hitherto people call selling passport, because you know we can't sell passport. The passport is the property of the government of Dominica and it cannot be sold. It is always the government's property.
Sure.
So I know it's a kind of weird nomenclature to use to say it in a way that means what is being delivered. But I believe if the Dominican management decides to render that program within the confined stream, Dominica will benefit and these lawyers will not be pigeonholed in the sense.
Lofty, you want to jump in?
Very, very interesting indeed. A note from Brother Bruce here on that point. Brother Bruce, just before we close here, we have like just about 15 minutes to go. A point that we have not elaborated on in terms of the fear, F-E-A-R, the fear factor that steps in or kicks in when a police or someone in that kind of authority position steps in and say, Mr. Bruce, you're under suspicion for taking the car, to use your example earlier on. We want you to come with us, and you know that process kicks in. How now can you help educate you and Josh, the citizens now, how to deal with that fear in terms of things that follow that fear, in terms of a possible confession or whatever it is under duress? Just speak to that fear in terms of the education.
Right. So there has to be something that you just raised, respecting.
Yeah, for some reason, can you just repeat your first sentence? We did not catch it.
I'm saying, in all due respect, there has to be a two-pronged response to that concern that you have raised.
Yes.
Hearing me. Good. So first of all, police officers are doing their jobs, people. Let us understand that early o'clock. They're hired to do a job and they will do their jobs. It is incumbent on police officers to do their job without wanting to be unfair to anybody. Yes? So that if Loftus is suspected of removing that car on Backstreet Roseau, the officer says, Loftus, we are doing some investigation about the car that was stolen on Backstreet in Roseau on Friday night. Your name came up as a suspect. We don't know if you were the one who removed this car. We just need to ask you a few questions if you know anything about this. You have nothing to fear. We're just going to be asking you some questions. If you don't feel comfortable, Loftus, you are entitled to call a lawyer to come and sit in whilst we ask you a few questions. If you need some time to get in touch with this lawyer, let us know. We can make the call for you, because all we're doing is giving you a fair chance to tell us what you know or if you know anything about it. A police officer who says that to someone drives all the fear out of them. But if the police officer drives in and sees the young man on the block in Roseau, you come, police want you, come now, get in, with a gun pointing at him and so on and so on. And he gets into that car, and by the time he gets into the car, is the F notes and the swearing and so on between that point and the police station in Roseau. And he gets into the station and like, you better tell us what you know, or you know what is going to happen to you. You drive fair in trying to pull stuff out of people. That should not happen. But at the same time, the ordinary man and woman in Dominica must know that in the face of all that coming from the police officer, if the police officer steps out of line, you have your rights. So do not become fearful and do not give in to cowardice and bend and buckle in those circumstances. Say to the officer, with all due respect, I know you're doing your work. You want me to go and talk to you about this car that was stolen? I really don't know anything about it, but if you have questions, I will come. Officer, I hear you ask about the stolen car. I don't wish to say anything to you about any stolen car. You can ask your questions, but I won't have any answers for you. And I know you have a duty to just ask your questions and do nothing else. If you hit me, if you assault me, if you threaten me, I shall report it straight away. And if people are having this conversation forthright, I think this fear factor will be minimized.
Thank you. Thank you. Josh.
Yes. Well, first of all, when a police officer approaches someone on suspicion of committing an offense, he's supposed to caution that suspect. And citizens would note that the police officer would say, you have a right to an attorney, one. He would also say that you have a right to remain silent. So I usually give citizens basic advice. A police officer approaches you on suspicion of committing an offense. He asks for your name and your address, and you give that. You are not obliged to say anything else. Unfortunately, some citizens choose to speak with police officers, and out of ignorance, either out of trickery by the police officer, they say certain things which can be used against them. And in worst case scenarios, they actually give statements which are recorded and they go on to sign. Thereafter, they then ask the police to call for an attorney or their relatives to call for an attorney. It is important that citizens understand that once police are involved, once somebody can be arrested, it's important to contact an attorney. And if for some reason you cannot get an attorney, keep your mouth shut, because you are being taken up, you may be arrested, you may be placed in a cell, whatever, and you're being treated as a criminal. The police says that you have a right to remain silent, so just stay silent. You give your name and your address. The only time that you should say something is if you're going to speak to exculpate yourself, to free yourself. And even then, one has to be careful because some persons are more educated than others on certain legal issues. So you may feel that you're going to free up yourself by making a statement, not realizing you're putting yourself in more trouble. So the safest thing for a citizen to do is to stay silent until his or her attorney comes on board. The attorney will tell him whether he should say something or shouldn't say anything.
The other thing I wish to add to Loftus to what Josh has just correctly said is that, look, again, if you're listening to me in Dominica, I'm looking straight into the screen. If you're listening to me, Dominicans, there are officers in your police force who are highly trained, who have exposed themselves to human psychology, and they can come over to you as a loving, dear friend of yours who's looking out for your best interests. You have nothing to worry about, they will say to you. They will say to you, there's no need for a lawyer. It's just a few questions and you just answer those and you get to go home in the next half an hour. And those things suck you in. Do not be sucked in by those charming officers in your police investigating unit, whether it's the CID or the RU or whatever unit you call it in Dominica. Take the advice that Josh just gave to you. You don't have to say anything besides your name and your address, because they can say failure to give a name and address is an obstruction to the investigation. So that's why we tell you to give that information. Outside of that, you do not have to answer. And if you say to call your relative, don't just say, I want you to call my mom. Because police have a tendency to call your mom and say, look, hey, Tom is here arrested and he's asked me to give you a call. And mom's like, well, Tom got arrested. And mom may not even be better off to think through the process. And then the police goes ahead to interview you in the absence of a lawyer. Say to them, I need to talk to a lawyer. Even if you know you can't pay for the lawyer at the time, say you need to talk to a lawyer. The lawyer may come and may settle with you an arrangement for you to pay subsequently too. But do not just buckle and start talking to police officers. I'm sorry to say this. By practice, they're not necessarily your friends in criminal investigation.
I agree.
I agree. Josh made the point earlier on in terms of the lawyers who normally present themselves to either to do pro bono work or represent certain clients in those matters. Speak to Mr. Bruce, the situation where one may call on a lawyer or call on lawyers for help, but that help is not forthcoming, and you know the human factor kicks in, and these people go all berserk and may just give in at the end of the day. Can you just speak to that?
Sometimes lawyers for more than reason do not agree to take a pro bono assignment, or as he or she may be invited to. And you might ask, what could be those reasons? Look, Josh would tell you, at law school, they tell you that we had to do something that is called the ethics of the profession. Yes? And the ethics of the profession says to you that there are certain cases that you can say, I cannot take or I will not take. A person involved may be somebody who is related to you or related to somebody with whom you are close to. It may be that your work schedule is such that you will not be able to give sufficient time to the justice to that case that the person is asking you to deal with. And the factors may be a multiplicity of them. But if you don't have those issues and you can help, I will just say to the lawyers, try and help. If in a situation you've asked a lawyer to reach out and assist you, and that lawyer says, I cannot help, you may want to ask the lawyer, do you know of another lawyer who might be willing to help me? May not be in the entire case, but probably to help me to cross-examine a particular witness in this case, because this is the key witness, and I don't know if I can properly cross-examine that witness. If the lawyer understands that you don't want him or her to represent you or to carry your entire case pro bono, but it's probably to take one witness statement based on your instruction and cross-examine this one witness to assist you, that lawyer might be more inclined to give an hour and a half, 2 hours cross-examining a single witness and say, thank you, I've given you some assistance, now carry on. So you just have to use a different approach.
Let me just quickly, I know the scenario we looked a few minutes ago had to do with the stolen of a car, stealing a stolen car. But I think Josh alluded to it earlier. What we see in recent times, and I speak more directly to Dominica, is, and you both are politicians in your own right, we see a lot of political victimization taking place. where persons as Josh, I'm sure can subscribe to, and Lofty. This person said this or this person did that. Either the information is obtained on a radio show or on Facebook or wherever, and you're arrested for incitement. That's the popular one now. For incitement, in Lofty's case, they claim he protested unlawfully. Matter went to court, he lost. The judge, they ruled against him, but they've been appealed. But you see that kind of scenario developing, where now the states with its full machinery of its money, its legal people, and all of that is being weighed upon the citizen. How do we, what recommendations, what remedy, if any, we can have moving forward in situation like that? It's like Goliath versus David versus Goliath. I don't know if Josh wants to speak on that a little, and then you can come in, Bruce.
Alvin, before these guys come in and expound or answer, let me just amplify my situation, Alvin. If what you referred to was just what happened to me in the legal circles, then that would be perfectly fine. But here it is, Brother Bruce, you will not know, Josh may have known. Yours truly was just in the company. Yes, I was just in the company of some other people who said certain things about whatever they said from a political standpoint. And I was harassed by the police. The police came to where I'm speaking from tonight, now, as we speak. And basically, you know, they came with their search warrant and walked up on my sofa and just made the place a disaster.
Your guns.
Looking for arms and guns and talking about overthrow government. And so, Bruce, that is what Alvin is talking to, the political persecution that goes on in this country by persons that the powers that be, you know, think or perceive that they are not singing from the same hymn sheet or singing on the same, or sitting on the same bench, as it were. So I just wanted to, you know, contextualize.
Yeah, that. Indeed, Loftus and Alvin, Dominica is not unique in those circumstances.
Bruce, hang for a while. Let Josh come in, and then you'll come in after Josh. Go ahead.
Right. So, as we said earlier, where a citizen is aggrieved by the actions or inactions of the police, he or she has legal recourse. Unfortunately, more and more Dominicans are losing confidence in the judicial system because some of the legal challenges against the government that have been instituted, the citizens have failed. And in some cases, because the citizens are not financially empowered, those matters will not appealed. I am very happy that a matter involving Lofty in more recent times is being appealed. And if for some reason it is unsuccessful at the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal, it can be appealed to the Caribbean Court of Justice. So that is one recourse that the public has. Another recourse the public has is education, knowledge. They say knowledge is power. Just as this initiative has been taken tonight, we need to have more of those, not just, you know, civic vibes on the radio, on the ground, get people to understand what their rights are. And for unity of opposition forces against the government, that is very critical. Numbers are in force. The government will probably be more considered in taking those type of actions, which is taken right now. Now, we are in a system where we're supposed to have separation of powers, whereby the judiciary is supposed to act independent or independently. The police is part of the executive, but they also have a quasi-judicial role to play before someone is taken to court. It is now taken in the public eyes that the police force of Dominica is being weaponized by political fuel. The police is being used to serve the interest of the executive and the legislature in Dominica, basically the government. So more and more, we are finding the ordinary and average citizen losing confidence in the police as well as the judiciary. With more information, more knowledge, more enlightenment, hopefully more Dominicans will stand up against these political persecutions. Because it's really true that Dominica is now becoming a police state. And the reason is simply because the police is being used to serve the interest of the government, because the government wants to keep the status quo. The government is very sensitive towards people speaking against what it's doing. So I believe we need to have more advocacy, more agitation, and more unity. Together we stand and together we speak.
Thank you, Josh. Bruce, you can come in.
If Josh doesn't say Dominica in any of that statement he just made, and just made that statement, it is equally applicable as far as I am concerned to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And maybe if you ask St. Lucia and if you ask Grenada, they may say that it is equally applicable to them. But I don't know I could add anything to what Josh has said. To me, he has just nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, Josh, you made the point that knowledge is power, but I think we had a guest on our program not too long ago who said the application of the knowledge becomes the power. Because if you have the knowledge and you don't apply it or use it, then you exercise the power. And I thought that was true. So absolutely right. And that is all the more reason which I again going to sort of advocate the need for some sort of collaborative work across the region. Even if we start with the OECS and then hopefully move to the wider Caribbean, but there has to be a collaboration where, like you said, persons like yourself, Bruce, Josh, maybe someone in Antigua, in St. Lucia, can collaborate. Because I'll tell you one thing. Recently, the Prime Minister of Dominica, who is the head of the Dominica Labour Party, had a convention in Dominica last Sunday. And at that convention, you had the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, you had the Prime Minister of Grenada, there with him collaborating, joining forces and supporting each other. I'm saying the similar need to happen at that level, where attorneys and folks through the region who is going through the same situation as you yourself have just confirmed happens in St. Vincent. There has to be a collaborative effort where persons like yourself within the legal and the judicial system can make yourselves available to the average man on the street who doesn't have much, who doesn't know much, when their rights are being abridged in the manner in which it's been done, that some persons can come to their assistance and provide that.
Yes, indeed. Alvin, thank you very, very much indeed. Folks, we have gone past our time, but you know how it is when we're having a very good conversation. The people on the field, yes, they can understand. It's 5 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock. The folks are asking for part 2 and maybe even part 3. And so you guys will, you know, quote unquote, surrender, as it were, to the people's wishes here. But as we bring down the curtains on things here, as it were, let us just go to our guests here so that they can give us, if not their final words, but their words that they would want to leave with us right here on the program.
Well, I guess I opened the bat and I will
I will close the batting.
How you say it? I will close the bat.
Close the batting, yes.
So I'm batting 100, not out.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank Lofty and Alvin for allowing me to be here on this platform. In fact, it was an honor. And I want to thank Bruce. I must say that Bruce brought some level of enlightenment. The program was short, but he did refer to a few cases right within the Eastern Caribbean basin that would be of relevance to the practice of criminal law here in Dominica. And I'm looking forward to engage him and to build a professional relationship and maybe a political relationship in the interest of the betterment of Dominicans. I get the impression that Bruce has a common denominator with Joshua Francis, and that is to elevate the quality of life of individuals. And we're basically using our profession to assist to make our respective countries better. So Lofty and Alvin, I'm hoping that you have a similar program, if not Joshua and Bruce, but some other attorneys to come and speak on other legal issues, because there's a lot to learn. And when a citizen knows his rights, he's more empowered, and police officers will be more careful in exercising their duty. And Bruce made a very important point earlier, and I want to end on that note, that whilst we examine the rights of citizens, we must also acknowledge the duty of police officers. Police officers are employed to maintain law and order. They are supposed to operate on behalf of the state and not a political party, of course. They must act reasonably wherever they find someone either about to commit an offense or conspiring to commit an offense, committing an offense, or an accessory after an offense is committed. The police must have reasonable and probable cause in detaining or arresting that person. And the police must always recognize the rights of citizens. Citizens have constitutional rights. They are protected and guaranteed in Section 3 of the Constitution of Dominica. And Dominica is a signatory to several regional and international human rights entities, including the Inter-American Declaration on Human Rights. I'm not too sure whether we are signatory to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, but nonetheless, human rights has become the new religion of the world. And police officers must take time and appreciate and understand that in a country where we have lots of political, economic, and social tension, that is natural that citizens will speak out. It cannot be that people are suffering in one way or the other. And when they speak, they are arrested and subject to further persecution and oppression. So I want to urge the citizens of Dominica to use what is happening to our citizens when they're arrested as another reason why we need to change this government and to change the conversation, to take Dominica into a new direction, a new paradigm. And it's those types of conversation which are going to serve as an impetus to enlighten the nation and to get people to understand why we need a new Dominica, a new government, a new direction in the police force. So once again, I want to thank you guys. Bruce, it was a pleasure. Until next time, I want to thank those on the platform, the followers. Thank you for being here this evening. Thanks, guys.
Yes, indeed. Well said, Josh. Thank you very much indeed on behalf of the many folks who are viewing at this time and those who will view the program when you place it on our podcast. And thank you very much indeed, Josh, for your time. Well spent, well executed. Thank you.
Yes, Brother Bruce.
Thank you so very much, Alvin. Loftus. I'm grateful for your invitation. Loftus knows once the invitation is extended and time affords me, I will consistently make myself available to my brothers and sisters in the land of many rivers, Dominica. I am grateful to Josh Francis, because at the very onset of this program, I knew that a lot of viewers and listeners would be on because Josh was going to be there. So he's created an audience. He's created an audience for me. So thank you so very much, Josh, for having created that ready-made audience for my presentation. But I say to the people of Dominica as I close that the Constitution of Dominica is the supreme law of the land. And every citizen of Dominica ought to be bound by that constitutional document. And so that it is the only thing that makes you an equal with the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police, and the Director of Social Services, and the Superintendent of Prison. If it's one thing that makes you all equal, is the Constitution of Dominica. Of course, the Criminal and Procedure Code Act of Dominica also gives you and tells you how police officers are supposed to deal with you when it comes to matters of your arrest. And so keep that in mind. Have your little conversations about the various sections of the Criminal Code and Procedure Act. It is in part 2 of that act that I wanted to look at the Constitution, the 1983 Constitution of Dominica. But of course, look at the fundamental rights and freedoms that you are entitled to as Dominicans. Look at what is advanced in the criminal code as to what rights that you have as Dominicans. Again, I want to say to the police officers, and we respect the fact that you are working, you are agents of the state. It is always said that the duty of the police officer is to protect and to serve. And I say to you, officers in Dominica, don't find yourself or yourselves in a situation that is akin to so many officers who have left the police force in St. Vincent. You just have to go on the street in New York and other places in America to find them, because so many of them don't find comfort and solace at home because of the way that so many of them have treated their own people, their own brothers and sisters. And so they go and languish in another man's country. Do not let that happen to you. Respect your citizens in Dominica. Do your job, do it fairly, do it without compromise, but do not abuse your citizens. That citizen you're abusing, as you lift your hand to slap him down to the ground, imagine if your brother is living in the United States of America and the police is about to slap down your brother innocently. Imagine that your wife, who has a contract in St. Kitts, and the police is about to slap her down innocently in St. Kitts just because of an allegation. You won't be happy for that to happen to your wife or your mother or your sister or your brother. Then don't do it to somebody else's brother, husband, sister, wife. Don't do it. Be law-abiding, do your jobs, but respect the rights of all Dominicans. Thank you, and may God bless you guys.
Say we've got to unite, brother and sister. Say we've got to unite. So,
Mr. Israel Bruce, thank you very much indeed as well. An eye-opening conversation, that is how I want to coin it. Very much eye-opener indeed. From our two esteemed guests here tonight, Mr. Joshua Francis out of Dominica, attorney at law, and Mr. Israel Bruce, attorney at law as well, and also an MP in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Alvin Thomas, your final thoughts, my brother, before we leave that space?
Yes, well, certainly, Lofty, I think that program was a very, very informative. Lots of information was shared there by Brother Bruce and Brother Joshua. And I think when you look at the feed on the live, folks were engaging nonstop. And sorry if we were not able to refer to as many as we would like to, but they were fully engaged. And as a matter of fact, several of them were asking for a part 2 and even a part 3. And I believe we have to bring the brothers back. I'm happy that out of that program, a relationship has been established between Brother Bruce and Brother Josh, who are attorneys. And I'm sure after that program, they'll be collaborating at some level. So at least that's something that we were able to achieve on the program. But yes, there's several more information that can be shared and will be shared. And I'm hopeful that we at Civic Vibes can have another segment of that, because as Josh said, and Bruce said, the legal framework is so broad, and there's so much going on with citizens at this time that they need to know what their rights are as we move forward. So thank you guys, everyone, and have a great week. And thanks again, Bruce. Thanks, Josh. Always a pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you.
What are we to end? Yes, all what we have said here tonight, all what came from the lawyers' mouths tonight, very, very little can be achieved if there's not unity.
We've got to unite. We've got to unite. Come on, people, say we've got to unite.
So who's best to pull down the curtains on things here about our brother Nasir Fontaine talking about we got to unite?
Unite.
So Dominicans, those of you on this blessed rock, thank you very much for your eyes and ears, like I normally say. Those of you in the region or further afield, thank you very much as well. See you guys next week Sunday, same time, same place. So from the Civic Vibes team, Alvin and myself saying we love you. Bye-bye.
Forcing on fighting, you only keep us apart. God, 100 years, yes, divided too long. We must unite so we can be strong. Whoa, 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 whoa. Every time I look around, I see my people suffer. Every time I look around, I seem to feel the pain. Why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? But I bless God. Why can't we unite? Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, can't we unite? Go, 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 make we unite. Go, 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 make we unite. Come on, people, say we've got to unite. Brother and sister, say we've got to unite. So too much sorrow,